For this demonstration, we're going to start off with a mask. I'm going to use a model that I found online, which is by Nick. It's a free ZTL model. It's a free OBJ. So the link I sent out to you, and I'll also put the OBJ up directory so you can share. So you could download either the WinRAR files or you could download this separate OBJs. I'm personally using subdivision level 2. Use whichever one your computer can handle the best. If you need to use level 1, it's fine. If you need to use level 3, that's fine. 2 works just fine for me. It's about 40,000 tries. So when I go into Marvelous, this is the model I'm going to use as the avatar. So I can close that. I want to import added in just so I could double check the scale of it compared to the avatar in Marvelous. So I'll change it to 1,000 because I'm assuming it's 1,000. And yeah, it's 1,000. So now I'll just go back and I'll delete all avatars. And I'm just going to add the avatar. So I'm going to go File, Open, Avatar. I'm going to select the avatar and then I'm going to change this to 1,000. And then I'll hit OK. There's the avatar in here. So if we're going to make a ski mask, I have a reference I'm going to be using. It's not going to be exactly it. I want to change it up a little bit, but it's just an idea of where I want to put my seam line. So my reference is this. He has a seam down the middle, and he basically has a spot for the eye holes. I'm not going to end up putting the logo on it, but it's just going to be about this tight, just covering up the whole face. You could use whatever reference you want for whichever mask you want to create later on, but for now, this is the one I just picked. It's very simple. It's just going to go pretty quickly. This should be a very straightforward tutorial. So to start, I'm just going to zoom in on the head. I'm going to add just the one side of the mask. That's why I picked a mask that had a seam down the middle. It'll make it a little bit easier to manipulate. As I create this, I'm going to add a fabric this time. I'm going to apply it on, just select and drag it on, rename it, mask. And then I'm just going to change the color to more of a darker color. But since it's dark, you won't see the folds as well, so I'm just going to add a little specular to it. And that's it. So you can see the sheen. I might adjust it as I go a little bit further, but for now, this is all I need to do. And change the particle distance down to 15 too. So for this is going to be the right side of the mask, so I'm going to place this on the right side fairly quickly. It's definitely not the scale I want, but for now, just getting it in there, just blocking it. So I'm going to copy this, I'm going to symmetry paste it, and basically symmetry is whatever I modify on this side is going to modify it on that side, so I could make it exactly the same as that side. It's a lot easier. You could always weld this together at the end, or leave a seam down the middle. It's up to you. But for now, this is what I'm going to do. It's going to make it a lot quicker. My first goal is just to make it fit his head. So I need this rounded off here. So I'm just going to add a little roundness here. And I'll make this a little bit wider on the bottom. And then I'm just going to weld the whole mask in. And I'll slide it down because it's a little high on his head. It's really big right now, but no big deal. Okay, so at first it's pretty bad. I'm just going to pull it down. I just want to make it fit on his head a little bit better. It's basically just a bag on his head. It's too tight around the neck. It's not fitting everywhere else. But I just want to get the seam down the middle really quickly, and I just want to get the overall feeling of the mask. So just play around with it until it fits just right. I'm going to add the thickness viewer on it, so it'll help with the mesh collision, and I'm going to change the collision in the cloth too. And the particle distance seems a little high still, so I'm going to change it to 13. And I'll send it. Okay. So right now it just looks like a really tight bag on his face. The top is a little bit too much, so I'm going to modify the curve a little bit. So I'm going to pull this out, smooth it out a little bit, so it's not just bulky right there. And it's really big on his head, so I'm just going to modify it a little bit lower, and it'll fit a little bit better. I want this to feel like it's coming down a little bit, so it feels more like it's covering the neck. So I'm going to just slide this down, sim it, and then pull it out. It could be pulled out a little bit more to the side. And that's it. The neck is usually where it would be tighter, so instead of it being so tight here, I'm going to add another curve in here. So you select the curve tool and just add a curve, slight curve in here. And then I'm going to, instead of this being so sharp, I'm going to add another one here to just give it a little bend so it follows the skull a little bit better. And this will follow the neck if I add curves into here. It'll follow the neckline a little bit better. This edge is a little too sharp, so let's go back and modify these. But as you can see, it's working on the other side too, so it's a lot easier than worrying about both sides at the same time. It's not tight enough in the neck, so I'm gonna make this a little bit tighter in the front. Okay. It's still a little bit big on him, so I'm gonna pull it down a little bit. And just slightly, just play around with it, get it on his head completely. Okay. If it looks too big for you, too baggy, you could just scale it overall. So let me just scale it a little bit, just to make it really tight on his head. Okay. So for now, it's not the best, but I'm just gonna play around with it just a little more. I need this to fold downward, then fold this on top. There you go. This avatar I'm using also has huge traps, so it's going to be a little bit more difficult, but it doesn't matter. You got to make it work with whatever character you're making it work with. So as I have the basic bag on the head, I'm going to save it now. So I'm going to turn off simulation. I'm going to go to File, Save As, Garmin. I'm going to save it right in my directory that I already had set, so it'll be the mask 01 and it'll be the base. So it's a base. I could always start with a mask now. So I need to add the eye holes. If I could just click on the mesh, I could see exactly where the eye would be. I could also select the fabric if I want and just put a little bit of opacity on there just so I could see underneath really quickly. So I want the eye holes about here. And then the bottom here and the top here. So around this area is where the eye holes should be. To do that, I'm going to delete the seam I put on here. And then I'm going to add the eye hole area. So I'll add it about there. And then I'll add another hole there. So I'll just pull it out really quickly. And you can see it as it goes. And then make sure you re-stitch the top. I'm going to turn the opacity back to 100. And then sim it. So very quickly I got a quick hole in the mask. If I want to keep this form a lot better, I'll select it. I'll put elasticity on it. So it keeps that form a little bit better, a little bit tighter, so it's a little bit easier to use. A little easier to manipulate. I wanted this to cover the nose. I want this to come out, go down around the cheeks, around the nose to give a little bit more life, a little bit more interesting of a design. So I'm going to go into the curve tools. I'm going to delete the ones that were added when I smooth out the top because they still stayed in there. So I'll delete these very quickly. Just right click them and just delete point when you're selected on the curve tool. So first going to add round this off on this side. That's a little too high. So first I'm going to round off the bottom where the eye would be. So that's about what I want, but it's still a little bit too much. That top is just not doing what I want. So just slowly, just play around with it to get your form you want. I don't want this little peak here, so I can't do that. But I could play around with the spot I placed everything. And I could pull everything around it. And I could add more dots as I go. So I want the spot for the nose, and then I want the spot for the eye. And you just got to keep resimming it, seeing how it looks. Play around with it. This is a little too high on his head. So I'm going to move it down. I'm going to slowly move everything down a little bit more. This is just where the creativity comes in, just a little fun part, just to get it working how you want. It takes a little patience just to get what you want. So that's about right. So now the top is a little bit too much over here, so I could just pull this back on his head and just have the wrinkles go. The front is a little too much. And I want a little bit wrinkles in the mouth area. The nose is a little bit too wide here. So I'm going to make this a little smaller. I'm going to add a vertex, and I'm going to make this smaller. So I'm going to select this and move this inward. So it's a little tighter. And just pull it down. It's a little too high on his head still. I'll put this back over his nose. The particle distance is a little too high. It's not giving me enough geometry to play around. So I'm going to change this down to 10 now. And then sim it. That'll be a little bit better. The front still bulges out a little too much. I'm going to delete some of these points that were added when I just moved it out very quickly. And I'm going to slowly pull this inward. All you have to do is keep playing with it until you get it how you like. This is still a little too high. So I'm just going to pull it down a little bit. I'm going to pull this down. The eye holes are not exactly what I want still. So just keep playing around with it till it gets how you want. Okay, so I'm pretty happy with it right now. I have the eye pretty much where I want it. I could pull this down a little bit more if I want to, but it's fine for now. So overall, that's a quick mask to do. Right now, I'll just add seam lines on it just to make it a little bit more interesting. So I'll save this again as the base head. Let's just save right over it. So overall, this is the mask I have right now. For this, the nose is just too wide right here. So I think I need to dart this out a little bit just to give it a little bit tighter right around the nose. So to do that, I'm going to delete some of these points to make it a little bit easier to work with. Delete that point, and I'm going to add vertexes, the black dots, and then just slide this in because I want to make this tight right on the nose. It'll add a seam, but it's fine. And then just weld this in. So that's going to make this area a little tighter. When you add a dart, it's going to pinch this in. So even though it cuts the cloth, it's going to pinch it in so it's a little bit tighter. And now if I sim it, it'll be on there. And I also have to... So the symmetry doesn't work with stitching in this version right now. They fixed it in the next version, I believe. So there we go. I want to round this off now. So it's not as... And I want this to follow this line, so I'm just going to move this vert until it gets where I want it to look. It's not going to change the overall flow of anything else. And I can make it a little bit tighter. There we go. I want to pull this down, like I was saying before. So let me go back and delete some of these points. So let me move this down just slightly. And then just pull it back on the head so it's a little tighter. I don't like the folds on the top. I'd rather the folds on the back of the head. Okay, there we go. So let me file, save this one more time. So I want to add the seam lines, basically, all the stitches and everything. So this is a personal preference where you want to put them. I'm going to put one on the bottom, so I'll select this edge and then I'll offset an internal line. I'll offset it by 8, and I want to do another one on this. So I'll offset this one by, I'll reverse it and have it on the inside, and I'll do it by 3. So this outer one I'm going to do 360, and this inner one I'm going to do 0. For the inner one, I'm not going to have any fold rendering on. It's just going to be for the one of them. So when I simulate it, it'll just get like a seam going around it, like its thickness, as you can tell. It pulls that in, and this one pulls it out, so it's a soft edge. And I'm going to do that around the whole thing. So I want the seam going down the head, around, and do the same thing. Offset an internal line. I did it by 8, and then I offset another line by 3 in the reverse direction. And then I wanted to go around the eye hole too. So select that, offset an internal line, I did 8. And then select that again. And then offset an internal line by 3, reverse direction. And select the inner ones. And then change the fold angle to 0 for the inside one. And for the outside ones, it's going to be 360. And also for the inside one, which I forgot already, I'm going to turn off fold rendering so it's not too many. So there we go. I have a little seam. It might be a little too thick of a seam, but that's all your preference. And now you can just refit it on the mask a little bit better if you want. I think on the neck the seam was fine. The one down the middle a little bit too much, just because it's doubling up compared. This is just on one edge, this is on 2 edges. So I'm going to cut this in half. So I'm going to delete this one and redo it. So select these edges. And then offset an internal line. And last time it was 8, so I'm going to put this at 4. And select those edges again. And then offset an internal line. 4 is at 3 in the reverse direction. And now I'm going to do it also at 3. It's the same thing for that. And then select the inside one. Select the inside one, set it to 0, fold rendering off, select the outside one and put it to 360. And there. You have a nice seam going around the head. So yeah, now you can just play around with the mask however you want it to fit, how tight you want it. You can make it wider if you wanted more wrinkles. You could make it tighter by making it smaller and just overall fitting the head. And you could just keep pushing, pulling it around until you get the folds how you want it. So overall, this is a quick mask for this character. And pause. And then I'll save this out, save project as, mask 02, details, and save it. So everybody, this is a quick demo for a mask. You can make it several different ways. You could put the seam not in the middle, you could put it on the side of the head, you could change it up however you want. Just find good reference and understand where the seam goes and figure out how it works. But as long as you start it very simple and don't worry about everything like the eye holes or where the nose is, just get the bag basically on his head. So you can worry about that stuff afterwards. Hope you guys enjoyed it, and on to the next demo.